Welcome to Horror Stories Fanatics. If you enjoy this type of content, then subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on any of our latest and greatest uploads. How did Stalin get away with murder? Stalin's name meant Man of Steel, and he lived up to it. He oversaw the war machine that helped defeat Nazism and was the supreme ruler of the Soviet Union for a quarter of a century. His regime of terror caused the death and suffering of tens of millions, but this powerful man began life as the son of an alcoholic cobbler and a doting mother who sent him to study to be a priest. Born into poverty. He is born on the 18th of December 1879 in Gori, Georgia, in the Russian Empire. Joseph Stalin was first named 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐿 Vissarionovich Zhugaishvili. Joseph grew up in poverty. His mother was a washerwoman and his father a cobbler. At age 7, he catches smallpox and is left with a pock-marked face and a slightly deformed left arm. He is bullied by the other children and feels a continual need to prove himself. His father is an alcoholic who deals out regular beatings. As young Joseph grows up, Georgia's romantic folklore and anti-Russian traditions capture his imagination. He rebels against the priesthood. Joseph's religious mother wants him to be a priest, and in 1895 sends him to study in Tiflis, the Georgian capital. However, Joseph rebels, and instead of studying scripture, he reads the secret writings of Karl Marx and joins a local socialist group. He devotes much of his time to the revolutionary movement against the Russian monarchy and loses interest in his studies. Going against his mother's wishes, Joseph becomes an atheist, and he frequently argues with the priests. In 1899, he is finally thrown out of the seminary after failing to turn up to his exams. The Revolutionary Bandit. While working as a clerk at the Meteorological Observatory, Joseph carries on with his revolutionary activities, organizing strikes and protests. His activities become known to the Tsarist secret police, and he is forced to go underground. He joins the Bolshevik Party and conducts guerrilla warfare for the first time in the 1905 Russian Revolution. His first meeting with Lenin, the Bolshevik leader, is at a party conference in Finland. Lenin is impressed by this ruthless underground operator. In 1907, Joseph steals 250,000 rubles, approximately 3.4 million in US dollars, in a bank robbery in Tiflis to help fund the cause. The Man of Steel. Joseph marries his first wife, 𝐜𝐻𝐸 Svanidze, in 1906. She comes from a poor family of minor nobility. 𝐜𝐻𝐸 gives birth to their son, Yakov Zhugaishvili, the following year. After the Tiflis bank robbery, Joseph and his family escape Tsarist forces by traveling to Baku in Azerbaijan. When 𝐜𝐻𝐸 dies of typhus in 1907, Joseph is racked with grief. He leaves his son to be cared for by his wife's parents, and he throws himself into his revolutionary work. He adopts the name Stalin, which means steel in Russian. He is arrested on a number of occasions and exiled to Siberia in 1910. Stalin takes part in the Russian Revolution. Lenin organizes the Russian Revolution and promises peace, land, and bread. Stalin plays a crucial role by running Pravda, the Bolshevik newspaper. He is hailed as a hero when he helps Lenin to escape from the Tsar's army into Finland and is appointed to the inner circle of the Bolshevik Party. When the Tsar is toppled, the country descends into civil war. Stalin, like the other hardliners within the party, orders the public execution of deserters and renegades. When Lenin takes power, he appoints Stalin to be general secretary of the Communist Party. Stalin gains new skills working as a mediator for officials throughout the party. Stalin promotes himself to dictator. After Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin begins ruthlessly promoting himself as his political heir. Many in the party expect the Red Army leader Leon Trotsky to be Lenin's natural successor, but his ideas are too idealistic for the majority of the Communist Party. Stalin, however, develops his own nationalistic brand of Marxism, socialism in one country, concentrating on strengthening the Soviet Union rather than world revolution. When Trotsky criticizes his plans, Stalin has him exiled. Stalin's ideas are popular with the party, and by the late 1920s, he becomes dictator of the Soviet Union. Collectivization causes massive famines. When Stalin takes power, Soviet agriculture is still dominated by small landowners and blighted by famines and inefficiency. Stalin modernizes agriculture by instigating collectivization, the grouping together of farms to be owned by the state. It is opposed by millions of ordinary farmers who resort to killing livestock and secretly hoarding grain. Around 5 million die in a series of famines. Nevertheless, Stalin believes the end justifies the means, and millions of smallholders are killed or imprisoned. By the late 1930s, farming is fully collectivized and productivity increases. Stalin's Great Terror. Stalin promotes an image of himself as a great benevolent leader and hero of the Soviet Union. Yet, he is increasingly paranoid and purges the Communist Party and army of anyone who might oppose him. 93 of the 139 Central Committee members are killed, and 81 of the 103 generals and admirals are executed. The secret police strictly enforce Stalinism, and people are encouraged to inform on one another. 3 million people are accused of opposing communism and sent to the Gulag, a system of labor camps in Siberia. Around 750,000 people are summarily killed. Stalin loses his wife and son. In 1919, Stalin marries his second wife, Nadezhda Alliluyeva, and they have 2 children, Svetlana and Vasily. He abuses Nadezhda, and she eventually kills herself in 1932. He makes sure her death is officially reported as being caused by appendicitis. Yakov, his son from his first wife, is a soldier in the Red Army and is captured early on in World War II. When the Germans propose to free him in a prisoner swap, Stalin refuses as he believes his son surrendered voluntarily. Yakov dies in a Nazi concentration camp in 1943. Bargains with the Nazis. Stalin signs a non-aggression pact with Adolf Hitler, and they agree to carve up Eastern Europe between them. When Hitler's armies easily defeat France and Britain retreats, Stalin ignores warnings from his generals and is completely unprepared for the Nazi blitzkrieg attack of June 1941, which tears through Poland and into the Soviet Union. The Soviet army suffers huge losses. Stalin is incandescent with rage at Hitler's betrayal and retreats to his office, unable to make any decisions. Soviet Russia is paralyzed for several days as the Nazi war machine rolls on towards Moscow. Stalin defeats Hitler. With the future of the Soviet Union hanging in the balance, Stalin is prepared to sacrifice millions to achieve victory over the Nazis. German forces sweep across the country and by December 1941 have almost reached Moscow. Stalin refuses to leave the city, deciding victory must be won at any cost. The Battle of Stalingrad is the turning point of the war. Hitler attacks the city, bearing Stalin's name to humiliate him, but Stalin tells his army, not a step backwards. They suffer over 1 million casualties, but manage to defeat the Nazis in 1943. The Soviet army begins the long pushback into Germany and all the way to Berlin. The Iron Curtain falls over Europe. Stalin plays a decisive role in Germany's defeat, and great swaths of Eastern Europe are occupied by Soviet forces, including East Berlin. Stalin is adamant these countries will be satellite states of the Soviet Union. His former allies, America and Britain, now become his rivals, and Churchill states that an Iron Curtain is falling over Europe. In a struggle for control of the capital, Stalin blocks entry to Allied-occupied West Berlin. The U.S. responds with an 11-month-long airlift of supplies to people trapped in that part of the city. On the 29th of August, 1949, the Soviet Union tests its first atomic bomb. The Cold War begins in earnest. The death of Stalin and the end of an era. In Stalin's last years, he becomes increasingly suspicious and continues to conduct purges against his enemies within the party. After a night of heavy drinking, Stalin dies of a stroke on the 5th of March, 1953. Many in the Soviet Union mourn the loss of this great leader who transformed the Soviet Union from a feudal economy to an industrial power and played a crucial role in defeating Hitler. But the millions incarcerated cheer at the demise of one of the most murderous dictators in history. Stalin's successor, Khrushchev, denounces the dead dictator and begins a wave of de-Stalinization. And with that, we've reached the end of this video, all about a killer deadlier than Hitler, Joseph Stalin. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content just like it.